Aristotle's category serves as the foundational text for Western categorialism. It functions as a structural blueprint for organizing everything that exists. For over 2,000 years, thinkers from Aquinas and Kant to Heidegger have defined their own systems by either defending or rejecting the contentions found in this work. Before Aristotle, the prevailing ontology was Platonic. In this view, perfect abstract forms exist in an ethereal realm. These entities are considered the most real, while physical objects are merely dependent shadows. Aristotle inverted this hierarchy. He argued that the concrete individual physical thing, like a specific man or a horse, is the primary reality. In this system, abstract concepts do not exist independently. Instead, they depend on physical particulars to have any existence at all. To map this, Aristotle categorizes ta anta, the beings. His objective is to build a framework that classifies all entities based on how they depend on one another. He simultaneously develops a second classification for ta legomena, or things said. This serves as a taxonomy of the highest conceptual kinds available to language. The central challenge is precision. He must find a way to map the complexity of the world without reducing every distinct object to a single, overly broad genus. The categories functions as an organizational system where the physical, material world dictates the structure of our concepts. Aristotle begins sorting reality by introducing two intersecting binary axes. The first axis is the said-of relation, which determines whether a being can be predicated of something else. This axis separates universals, which are said of others, from particulars, which are not. This grid shows how that first axis meets the second, the present-in relation. The present-in axis separates accidental properties from essential, non-accidental properties. We can now populate the quadrants. In the bottom left quadrant, we find entities that are neither said of nor present in anything else. Aristotle calls these primary substances. These are concrete particulars, such as an individual man or a specific horse. All other things bear a relationship to these entities. The bottom right quadrant contains entities that are not said of others but are present in a subject. These are accidental particulars. This refers to a specific, unshareable instance of a property, like the particular whiteness of an individual piece of cloth. In the top left quadrant are entities that are said of a subject but not present in one. These are essential universals, or secondary substances. This represents the natural kind or genus that a primary substance belongs to, such as the category of human. Finally, the top right quadrant contains entities that are both said of and present in a primary substance. These are accidental universals. This includes concepts like knowledge or whiteness, which are predicated of many individuals but are only accidental to them. This matrix establishes an asymmetric dependence. If you remove the primary substances in the bottom left quadrant, the rest of the grid ceases to exist. With these relations defined, Aristotle moves from how things exist to classifying the specific kinds of things that exist. A common logical question is why Aristotle does not place the concept of being at the top of a single master hierarchy.
Aristotle argues in the Metaphysics that every genus must be differentiated by a trait that falls outside of that genus. If being were the highest genus, it would have to be differentiated by non-being, which Aristotle views as a contradiction. He concludes, therefore, that being is not a genus. Rather than a single pyramid, the world must branch out laterally into several distinct highest kinds. These 10 highest kinds are substance, quantity, quality, relatives, somewhere, sometime, position, having, acting, and being acted upon. The substance node branches downward through species of increasing specificity, from living things, to animals, to humans. The quantity node follows a different structure, dividing into continuous species like lines and bodies, and discrete species like numbers. By denying that being is a master genus, Aristotle provides a way to study existence by studying its relationship to a primary center, substance. The two systems appear consistent on their own, but when overlaid, they create structural friction. This conflict is most evident in Aristotle's treatment of body. Throughout his work, Aristotle identifies body as a species within the category of substance. However, in his discussion of quantity, he explicitly lists body as a species of continuous quantity. This placement contradicts his own matrix. A species in an accidental category like quantity cannot be said of a primary substance. The result is a paradox where body is logically both predicated and not predicated of a primary substance. This suggests that scholars are still debating the exact logic Aristotle used to derive these categories, a point of contention that has lasted for centuries. This leads to the fundamental question of the text: whence the categories? Aristotle never explicitly states the method he used to generate this specific list of 10. Immanuel Kant criticized this absence, claiming that Aristotle had no guiding principle for his selection. Kant argued that Aristotle merely picked them up as they came his way, suggesting the list was the result of brainstorming rather than deduction. Realist interpreters have spent centuries attempting to reverse engineer a systematic derivation from the text. One proposal is the grammatical approach. This hypothesis suggests that Aristotle identified these categories by analyzing the subject-predicate structures inherent in language, believing they reflected the actual structures of the world. A different view is the medieval derivational approach, favored by scholars like Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas argued the categories flow from the relationship between form and matter, specifically that quality originates from form and quantity originates from matter. Because the text remains silent on his method, the exact origin of the 10 categories remains a subject of ongoing research. Regardless of their derivation, the categories established a realist tradition in metaphysics, the idea that the world has an independent structure we can successfully map. By building this system, Aristotle showed that understanding reality requires mapping how its various kinds relate to one another, with the concrete physical object serving as the foundation for every other category.